guys, it's Bethany and Kristen here. Thanks so much for joining us today on this very random weather day. Here in San Antonio, the weather is literally like it comes in cold fronts. Like we were swimming on Saturday and we're wearing jackets outside today. So weird. Anyways, we're so glad you're here. If you like our channel, go ahead and subscribe right now. If you want to keep up with us on a more regular basis, head on over to our blog, girldefined.com. And if you would like to support us and to see our channel continue on, go to patreon.com/girldefined and check out our page. So Zach and I were talking the other night at dinner time, which brings up all sorts of good conversations.
Yes.
I don't know if you and Dave
over
have,
the dinner table.
all the random things come up, but
Yeah.
my husband's a big Twitter guy. Like, he loves Twitter, and he was on there and he saw some tweet about something about like masculinity or manhood, and it was really negative. And he's like, man. And so he just brought up this conversation like, hey, what do you think about masculinity, manhood? And we started talking, and he's like, as a guy who's really striving to do the right thing, it's really hard for me when I see these tweets and I see these comments and I hear these things that are very, very negative about manhood. And he's like, it's so hard because here I am, a guy who's genuinely trying to do the right thing towards women, towards you, towards everyone. And it's so hard when you see so much negativity. So that just brought up a whole conversation
like a huge can of worms
about this topic really of masculinity and manhood. And as we were talking, we had to acknowledge the fact that masculinity and manhood have been used for so much evil. And I mean, just think about the women we know who've been abused. Some of you have been abused. Like, I mean, we made that video recently on that because it is such a big issue. There's sexual abuse, I mean, all different types of abuse. And it's so clearly we can see in society a response to the evil that men have caused. And that is a reality that we have to acknowledge. And it is so sad. And so much of that is coming from people who have been hurt by men who are using their strength and their leadership and using themselves in evil ways against other people. And so that's one side of it. And it's really sad, and we have to acknowledge that.
That's awful.
And it is awful. It's terrible. It's sin. And like the Bible acknowledges that. But as we were talking, we were also acknowledging that God created men for so much more. Yeah. He created men to be men who use their strength, who use their leadership, who use their influence to not hurt others, but to protect others and cherish others and value others.
Respect and honor.
Respect and honor, all of these things. And so as we were talking, Zach was like, man, like I'm striving to be that kind of guy, but it's hard when you live in a society where there isn't a lot of that being encouraged or really promoted. A phrase that I've seen a lot lately, you guys have, but this phrase, toxic masculinity, has been around for a while, but I think it's really trending right now because there's a lot of things that are bringing it to the surface. And in a nutshell, it was hard for me to nail down, like in all my research, what this description is. Like one definition, but I think at the heart of it was really masculinity that's used in a way that is selfish and harmful. So using masculinity in a way that is really hurting other people rather than protecting them.
As we think about toxic masculinity, I think it's easy to put like toxic masculinity is the problem, manhood is the problem, but really, like as biblical, Bible-believing Christians, we need to dig deeper than that and say, okay, what's really the problem here? Is masculinity the problem? Is manhood a problem? Do we need to get rid of that? And
Are men the problem?
Are men the problem? I don't think it is. I think it's the sin, the rebellion against God's good design for manhood that's really the problem. It's men saying, I'm going to do things my own way. I'm going to live for myself what I want. I don't care if I hurt someone else at the expense. I'm rebelling against God and his good design for men, and I'm going to do things my own way. And I think we get this word toxic masculinity, but I think that's really at the heart of it. That's really at the core of what's going on. It's this rebellion against God's design. And I think it's important that we do. It is right and good to call out the sin, the evil, the wrong, that rebellion against God, and say, no, that is never right, that is not good, but not to swing so far to the other side where we say, men are the problem, men are the issue, let's get rid of men, masculinity.
Kind of a blanket statement overall
in general, and get rid of them, because that's not really the problem. What we need to do is say, yes, there is a problem over here, the sin is the problem, but what about God's good design for masculinity? And what about the men who are genuinely striving to honor God, who are genuinely like honoring women and respecting women and seeking to like cherish women and protect them? There are so many women. Yeah, they still exist. And there are still so many men that want to honor women in that way. And I think we need to be careful not to put this overall, like, this is the way it is, because I think that can also be harmful. So on one hand, we are seeing this evil, sinful form of masculinity being portrayed, and we need to acknowledge that as wrong. But then instead of just saying, okay, that's all I have, we need to say, no, what is God calling men to? What is a right version, a God-honoring version of masculinity? And how can we like encourage and champion men in that? And so in 1 Peter, if I can get my Bible here, in 1 Peter, there is a verse that gives us a little clue. There's a lot of verses about what God calls men to. And I think it's so important that we know what God calls men to so we can actually promote that. But 1 Peter 3:7a says, likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman. And I think that's so important. God isn't calling men to be these powerhouses, controlling, ruling, forget the woman. No, he's saying, live with your wife in an understanding way, understanding each other, the differences, seeking to understand, saying, wow, let me understand your point of view. Let me try to understand you as a woman, and then showing honor. Honor is such an incredible word. What does it mean to show honor to someone? Like, think about it. If you say, wow, I want to honor someone, you're going to go above and beyond to respect them, to value them.
And just thinking of the contrast of a man honoring a woman versus a man dominating a woman or abusing a woman, like loving her and honoring her, what a contrast that we see in Scripture.
And so when you see that and you hear that, wow, that God is calling men to live in an understanding way and to honor, that is such a difference. And that's something that we can call out and promote and champion in the men who are striving to live in that direction. Another verse that I think is a wonderful description of how God calls men to act, and it may be a verse you have never heard of, but I think it's so important to see this. It's 1 Corinthians 16:13-14. We'll link this below. It says, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. But it doesn't stop there. It says, let all that you do be done in love. So it's calling the men to stand in the faith, to act like men, to be strong. But what does that look like? That means that let all that you do be done in love. And true biblical love, as we know, is really a reflection of what Christ has done for us, which is a self-sacrificing kind of love. It's not a love that puts yourself first and does what feels good. It's not about following your heart. God is calling men to sacrifice for those around them, to sacrifice for their wife and say, I am going to put you before myself. I'm going to die to myself and love you like Christ has loved me.
And this verse isn't even just for married men, but single men too, like all men to love others in that way. So even from a young age, like little boys growing up and learning how to put others first, how to sacrifice for others, how to have that sacrificial love towards women, that's something that they can learn from a young age as they grow up, but it's for all men.
Yeah, and it's the exact opposite. It's the toxic masculinity using power and strength to kind of like rule over and to hurt, but biblical manhood, it's using that power and that strength to love and to protect and to put the other before yourself. Now that is a kind of manhood that we should champion. That is a kind of manhood that we should promote. And when you see a man that wants that is striving after that, that is something that we should say, yes, keep it up. That is God's design for manhood.
These verses are honestly super encouraging to me, and I think to you, and hopefully they are to you, because if we as women can gain this bigger perspective of what God actually created manhood for, then when we live in society and we see the evil that is happening, if we've been sinned against by men, if we've had awful things happen, we can step back and say, yes, there are men who are embracing a distorted version of masculinity, of manhood. That is not God's good design.
That's
that
wrong,
is
that's
not
evil.
How he intended men to treat women. And we step back and say, God has a better calling. He has a higher calling for men. So rather zeroing in and focusing just on the negative, we can step back and say, are there men in my life who are actually striving to live out God's good design for manhood, for masculinity? Men who are striving to cherish women, love women selflessly, lead in humble leadership. If there are men like that we can see, which I'm married to one. He is an amazing, not perfect, but a man who is striving after that. You're married to one. Our dad was a man like that. We have brothers, we have friends, there are guys we know. And so rather than zeroing in and having this negative perspective about all men, like you said, that blanket statement, being women who can say, yes, there are men like that and that is evil, but at the same time, there are men who are striving to live out God's design, men who are striving to protect, cherish, and value women. And so I'm going to be a woman who intentionally champions that, who values that, who tells the men, way to go, keep it up. I appreciate you. I am grateful for you. And I think if we as women could rise up and encourage men, godly men and godly manhood, I think that would make a huge difference for them, for their leadership, for their perspective, for even the way that they view manhood themselves. I think we as women could be a huge encouragement if we make a choice to promote godly manhood. Thanks so much for joining the conversation today. We know this was a very big topic. There are a lot more directions and things to discuss. So we would love to continue the conversation below. We would love to hear your thoughts and your insight and your input. You know, are you familiar with this topic? So definitely leave your comments below. And then
Again, if you would like to see this channel continue on, if you want to say, yes, I love what you're doing, I want to see this move forward, we are asking you to join with us, link arms with us by supporting us on Patreon with just $1, $2 per video, which helps us and enables us to continue this channel ad-free, continue what we're doing. So if you want to do that, go to patreon.com/girldefined. Remember, it's like burr, burr. And today, wait, should I say Bethany percent? That was the one thing we never decided.
No, you got it.
There's no story. I know. There's
Just
nothing.
say,
Like, your phone's buzzing. You've got it, George. Don't bang your legs.
That's not the point either. Yeah, nice. George.
Your turn.
Hold it. No, you're still going.
No, that's enough.
Oh, that your stupid dog keeps barking.
I know.
What are you gonna do about it?
Should I shut up?